Hello again, folks. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to go over my opinions for some of the best subclasses in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So this is going to be a tier list for all of the official classes and subclasses that Wizards of the Coast have released. And the way I'm going to rank them is going to be solely based on what the subclass adds to the class's potential in tactical combat. I know in a lot of games I run and a lot of games I play, combat in Dungeons & Dragons is tactical, is oftentimes lethal, and is a very large and important part of the game. And so I'm going to go over my explanations for how I rank the subclasses. They're going to be in tiers S all the way down to F. And again, this ranking is based on combat potential and abilities only. So if a subclass does not give a lot of extra bonuses for combat to a class, it will probably be ranked lower, even if it may be more interesting out of combat or have other interesting abilities. So we're not taking roleplay ability into account here. The way I view subclass and role-playing ability usually depends on the player and the DM, so that doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about here. This is just measuring how effective a subclass is in combat. So, without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to show you the tier, what subclasses I put into that tier, and then give a brief explanation on why I put those subclasses there. If you are looking for more than just a very brief overview of what I think about the subclass, I will be coming out with some videos in the future going over each class, its different subclasses, their different abilities, how I rank them, what I think about them, everything like that. Those will probably be made and recorded in the coming weeks, so stay tuned. So, starting off in the F tier, there's probably no surprises here. The Battle Rager Barbarian, shitty spiked armor, weird class that's only available to dwarves, baseline. Why are you making your barbarians wear armor? They don't like it. None of the abilities that synergize with the armor are good. It's not good. Knowledge Cleric gets no offensive abilities for combat whatsoever. It gets the baseline 8th level ability for Caster Clerics that increases cantrip damage, and that's it. Everything else is for ability checks, tool proficiencies, out of combat stuff. Not good. And Beastmaster Ranger. For the Rangers in this tier list, I'm just using the standard Player's Handbook Rangers, not the revised Rangers. I'll talk more about that once I get to the other Rangers. But the Beastmaster Ranger, it's not good. You know why. You've heard it before. No one likes this class. It's not very good. The Animal Companion you get is quickly outscaled by enemies. It gets almost no bonuses to its power. You have to waste one of your attacks to command it to attack. Really, you're just better off not having a beast as a ranger. Moving on to D tier, once again, hopefully not too many surprises. Starting off with Nature Cleric, just play a druid. Any druid is better than Nature Cleric in basically every way. There are only a few very small niches a Nature Cleric can fill. If you are really concerned in your campaign about charming, communicating, or commanding beasts or plant creatures, then I guess Nature Cleric is for you. Otherwise, just play a druid. They are better. Every druid is better. Cavalier Fighter. Cavalier Fighter's main ability does not synergize with the mounted combatant feat. In fact, they run counter to each other. I do not understand why this decision was made, but it makes Cavalier Fighter not very good. Cavalier Fighter also suffers from the same problems Cavalier has been struggling with since its inception. There are just some places you can't ride a mount into. There are some fights where you have to get off your mount, and if that's the case, you're not going to have a good time. Undying Warlock. Undying Warlock is a weird subclass from Sword Coast Adventures Guide. Its expanded spell list is not very good, doesn't offer too much. Its first level ability to make undead not attack you, its usefulness is limited, to say the least. Its one useful ability can only be used once per long rest instead of short rest like every other Warlock ability in existence. And overall, it's a lot of good flavor for a Warlock, but if you're actually looking for abilities and usefulness, you're not going to find it here. C- tier. This is where things start to get okay, but still not very good. Starting off with Purple Dragon Knight Fighter. This is another one from the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. This is a very interesting sort of support fighter, where when you use your abilities, you can choose some teammates to get some bonuses when you do. Overall, it's not great. You're better off going most other fighters, but if you are looking for a more supporty role but still want to play a fighter, this isn't the worst option you could take. Next up is 4 Elements Monk. This is the monk that allows you to cast spells by spending your key points. You're a monk, your key points are way better spent doing anything else but casting spells. None of the costs are very good, none of the spells you get are too useful, and you don't get access to that many. If you are interested in being Avatar: The Last Airbender, there are a few homebrew changes to 4 Elements Monk that make it at least usable. This would be a lot lower if it wasn't a monk. The core of monk is still so good that you can get away with playing 4 elements and not be the worst member of your team in combat, but every other monk archetype is better. And finally in the C- tier, Necromancy Wizard. Necromancy does not get a lot of love in this edition. The first ability you get from Necromancy is good, getting health back on a kill once per turn, but everything else isn't so good. It makes the spell Animate Dead usable, as in not complete trash, but it's still not a very good spell. Even at 6th level, you can create, 4 zombies, let's say. That's still not great. You're still better off throwing a fireball. Overall, if you're playing a wizard, I would go for a different school. Necromancy in this edition, unless you're using some optional rules, maybe some homebrew, is not very good. Alright, moving on up to the C tier. Starting off with Storm Herald Barbarian. Storm Herald Barbarian isn't terrible, but the Storm Aura ability that it's sort of all based off of isn't great. The damage isn't that much, the extra abilities it gets isn't that much. For the best ones, you have to use up your bonus action. It's very cool flavor-wise, but for actual abilities, there are better barbarians. College of Whispers Bard is a strange one. Their Psychic Blades ability that they get at 3rd level is pretty good for combat, but everything else that they get is not great for combat. It's a lot of out-of-combat utility, things that take a minute at least. Their utility outside of combat is good, but in-combat abilities are a bit lacking. That's just often the case with classes that sort of revolve around different sorts of charms. Overall, again, very interesting flavor-wise, but there are better subclasses to pick for raw power. Moving on to Trickery Cleric, in a similar vein, the Channel Divinity from Trickery Cleric I think is a bit underrated. It can be very good if used in a smart way, and their Blessing of the Trickster can also be very useful for getting the rogue back safely. Good flavor, some interesting abilities, but if you're looking for raw power, you're not going to find it here, you're going to find it in other clerics. Next up is Shepherd Druid. This is the druid that summons the spirit totems. Some of the spirit totems are alright, some of them aren't so alright. Overall, I think the Shepherd Druid just suffers from some missed opportunity. Shepherd Druid also focuses on summons, but the bonuses it gets to its summons aren't that good, aren't that useful, and overall just aren't that powerful. Next up is Eldritch Knight Fighter. Eldritch Knight does have that sort of reputation of not being very good. I think there are different ways you can build it to make it better, but more often than not, you are going to fall in the trap of just being a subpar fighter with some wizard spells. Also, the weapon bond, I think, is very underutilized in the rules. I would have liked to see that be a little bit cooler. Next is Mastermind Rogue. Mastermind Rogue is the sort of non-combat rogue, if that makes any sense. Most of their abilities go for a more deception angle rather than attacking angle. In fact, one of their abilities makes it just better for them not to hit anything and to just help their allies and command them to attack. Which, as a rogue with sneak attack, you wouldn't think that would be the case. The Great Old One Patron Warlock is a warlock I've seen a lot of, and I've never been impressed with it. A lot of its abilities are, again, for flavor, for role-playing opportunities, things like that, for out of combat. In combat, it really only gets one ability, which is decent, but in the grand scheme of things, not all too great for that to be the one trick up your sleeve. And finally, for this tier, we have the Illusion Wizard. The usefulness or not usefulness of illusions in combat really depends on your DM and how they rule it. Generally, illusions can be useful for distracting enemies or getting their attention off of some things, but a lot of it comes down to the creativity and cleverness of the player. Much like some others in this tier, they really only get one combat ability that is usable once per short rest. It's a good ability, but that is all they're getting, and the rest of it relies on their own creativity and the benevolence of the DM when it comes to illusions. Alright, that is it for part 1. In part 2, which will be out in a few days, we will be looking at the tiers B- all the way up to S, which is the majority of the subclasses in the game. So I hope to see you all there.